This story is haunting in the most unsettling way. I had a young mother come in for a scheduled C-section at 33 weeks pregnant with triplets. She was nervous, understandably, and I could see the anxiety in her eyes as I prepared to do her initial exam. As a PGY2 second-year resident, I was tasked with taking her health history and performing an ultrasound to check the position of the babies. She was squirming in discomfort, clearly worried. I asked her if there was anything I could do to help ease her nerves. She confided in me that she'd been warned about all the complications that could come with a multiple pregnancy, but none of them had happened. Everything had been going smoothly so far. In fact, she'd even been walking around the mall just the day before, and the babies were all projected to be over 4 pounds each. So the C-section had been scheduled. Then, she said something that stuck with me. "I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop." I tried to comfort her, telling her that everything looked great, that the babies were healthy and growing well. The C-section went smoothly. All 3 babies were born big and healthy, and I rounded on her the next morning, feeling relieved. I even told her that she had nothing to worry about, that everything had turned out fine. I left for the day, thinking it was all over. But then, just hours later, tragedy struck. She died the next day in transit to another hospital, on a helicopter, trying to get a heart transplant. The cause: acute cardiac decomposition. Her heart was failing, and it wasn't until after the delivery that it all came crashing down. She had been developing a condition called dilated cardiomyopathy, a weakening of the heart muscle, which had been hidden for so long. The pregnancy, the pressure from her growing uterus, had been compensating for her condition. But after delivery, her body couldn't keep up. The stress of the labor, the shift in her body's balance, was too much. She knew, somehow deep down, she knew, and I can't shake the thought that her words, "I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop," were a premonition, as if she had already sensed what was coming. It's the cruelest kind of fate, one that feels more unjust than anything. Her death, just as everything seemed to go perfectly, is a reminder of how unpredictable and fragile life can be. It's the worst kind of twist, when everything looks fine on the surface, but underneath, the heart is quietly failing. And now, every time I think of her, I remember those words and how they turned out to be the tragic truth. I've worked in healthcare for over 20 years, and during my time in nursing homes, I've experienced some strange things. One occurrence that stands out to me happened multiple times. I would see a figure in black rushing down the hall, and within the next 24 hours, a resident would pass away. A few days later, another would pass, almost like a strange pattern. But my favorite story comes from when I worked at a small hospital. It had been around for many years and was very old, with only about 30 beds. In the basement, there was an old morgue, and there was one elevator that connected the basement to the main floor, right outside the nurses' station. This elevator had a habit of randomly coming up in the middle of the night, and when the doors opened, the staff would immediately know that someone had passed away. It happened more times than I can count. One night, while I was sitting at the nurses' station with a couple of my co-workers, we suddenly heard a TV blaring at full volume down the hall to our right. One of my co-workers and I decided to check it out and figure out where the sound was coming from. There was only one room down that hall, with a "Do Not Enter" sign on the door, a maintenance room that was always kept locked. We looked in all the other rooms, and there was no one there. So the only place left to check was the closed room, We opened the door and found absolutely nothing. Just the TV blasting at full volume with no one in the room. I walked in, turned off the TV, and said, "Please turn that off. There's a sick baby next door who needs to sleep." After that, the room was silent, and there were no more incidents with the TV. It was one of those moments that still gives me chills to think about, but it's something I'll never forget.